Hi, welcome back to another session of elasticity of demand. And the initial slides, 12 to 18, review or provide the answers for the questions that you would have completed. So look at them carefully. If you have any questions, see me during the teaching session. So here on the slide, the task was to use the three methods of calculating price elasticity of demand. And the first, of course, is the revenue method. So you're calculating the change in total revenue, so the revenue before compared to the revenue after. And as you can see in this case here, the price has gone down from 14 to 12, but total revenue has gone up from $1,400 to $1,600. So that indicates that the seller will decrease price in order to increase total revenue because demand is elastic. Second method, using our formulas. The first one, as you can see, we used the midpoint formula and we got a coefficient of 2.17. When we use the percentage change formula, we got 2.8. Both are greater than 1, so no problem. But you can see there's a significant variation using each formula. And so, as a rule, we prefer you to use the midpoint formula because it's just that little bit more accurate. And the only time you should use the percentage change formula is where the question actually provides only percentages, and then you simply substitute it in. Now this slide requires you to use the revenue method and the two coefficient formulas to calculate elasticity, and of course you should arrive at the same conclusion, that demand is elastic. Now remember, for a business, it's important, if they want to increase revenue, to know whether to increase or decrease the price. So as we can see here, if demand is elastic, sellers will decrease the price in order to increase revenue. If they increase the price, they'll lose money, they'll lose revenue. So here we see the price falls from 14 to $12. So total revenue, as you can see, actually increases from $1,400 to $1,680. So we've got here an example of elastic demand. The price falls from 14 to 12, causing total revenue to increase to $1,680. So if we compare the change in revenue, that there represents the loss in revenue by putting the price down, compared to the gain in revenue. And again, it shows that total revenue has increased. If demand is elastic, the price elasticity of demand is greater than 1. Therefore, quantity demanded is relatively responsive to the change in price. This way, demand is relatively elastic, and the seller should decrease price in order to increase total revenue. Now let's have a look at the coefficient method. We're substituting into the midpoint formula. Change in quantity, 100 to 140, so change of 40. Q1 plus Q2, 100 plus 140 divided by 2, 170, which comes to 40 over 120. We do the same for price, 14 minus 12, 2, 14 plus 12, 26 divided by 2 to get the midpoint, which equals 2 over 13. Divide that into your top number and you should arrive at the coefficient of 2.17, which is greater than 1, elastic. When we calculate the price elasticity, we can see prices increased by, quantity is increased by 40%, and price has decreased by 14.3%. So we get a coefficient of 2.8. Note the variation. 2.17 is not equal to 2.8, but this is not important because it's significantly above 1. The next two slides require you to do exactly the same calculations, and in the next one you'll find that demand is inelastic, and in the third one that demand is unitary. In this one we can see that the price has gone up 100%, and quantity demanded is only decreased minimally, by a very small amount. And so using the revenue method, 8 times 90 is the revenue before, but the revenue after, of course, goes up to $1,280. So there's a significant increase in revenue. So the price has gone up and the revenue has gone up. So there we know demand is inelastic. In our third case, we see that price and quantity have changed by the same proportions, and so basically there's no change in total revenue. So whether the seller puts his price up or down, he's not going to get any more revenue. And you see the coefficient is 1, which indicates unitary elasticity. So here's another example of where the price changes affect total revenue. And so you can see as the price decreases from $5 down to $3, total revenue increases. So there we can conclude demand is elastic. But once the price falls to $2 and $1, total revenue starts to decline. So then we can see prices below $3, demand is becoming inelastic. The next slide contains the answers, some questions and the answers, so study them carefully because they relate, of course, to this slide. Your answer for this one should be based on the previous slide. Use that as an example to flesh out a few sentences to answer the question. What we're looking at now is what are the determinants of price elasticity of demand, or in other words, what things determine how responsive quantity demanded will be when the price changes. For example, if the price of petrol goes up, quantity demanded will decrease for sure. That's the law of demand. But this decrease in quantity demanded will be very, very small. Why? If the price of Coke goes up, there'll be a relatively large decrease in quantity demanded. Why? Well, the reasons are listed below. We see 2 of them, and there are some more on the next couple of slides. So the first and maybe the most important determinant is the number of substitutes. If the good has lots of substitutes, like Coke, if the price of Coke goes up, well, consumers just switch to a cheaper alternative, and there's such a big number to choose from. In the case of petrol, if the price goes up, well, there are not many alternatives to petrol. Most cars in New Zealand run on petrol, so people haven't got much choice. So demand for petrol would be inelastic, while the demand for Coke would be elastic. The second determinant is the good a necessity, a good that we need, or is it a luxury, a good that we don't need? So taking petrol again, petrol is a necessity. It's something that we have to run our motor vehicles, and so if the price goes up, there'll be a relatively small decrease in quantity demanded. However, an overseas holiday is a luxury item. We don't need to go for a holiday overseas. We could have a holiday in New Zealand, for example, or we could have a holiday at home and just read books, watch movies. So if the price of an overseas holiday goes up for whatever reason, could be the value of the New Zealand dollar goes down or whatever, if the price goes up, there'll be a very big response in the number of people wanting to travel. So quantity demanded will decrease relatively more. So there we'll say demand is elastic. The third determinant is related a little bit to necessity and luxury. Is the good expensive or cheap? Expensive goods, like overseas holidays, luxury items if you like, they take up a large percentage of our spending. So any increase in price or decrease in price, there's going to be a very sensitive response. Quantity demanded will increase or decrease relatively more than the price change. If the good is cheap, like it's a necessity, for example, I'll use the example of a lighter that maybe once a year we buy a couple of lighters at the supermarket, so we spend maybe $2 or $3 on them, or $4 once a year. So that spending takes up a very, very tiny percentage of our total spending. So even if the following year we go in and we see the price has gone up by 100%, it would have little effect on our decision to buy that lighter because it's so cheap. Fourthly, is the good durable or non-durable? Durable goods are goods that last a long time. And so if the price changes, if the price, for example, goes up, it's unlikely people will go ahead and buy that good immediately. They can wait because it's durable. If they have to replace it, they have to replace it. But generally, we say durable items tend to be more responsive to changes in price, while non-durable items or single-use goods as they're known, like food, tend to be more unresponsive, in other words, more inelastic to price changes. And finally, is the good habit or forming addictive? Cigarettes are. And so smokers of cigarettes, every time the price goes up, they say, oh, I must cut back. And it doesn't last long, and they're back smoking as much as they were before. So price increases tend to cause a relatively smaller decrease in quantity demanded because people are addicted. So it's inelastic. And of course, government regulation is the final one. If the government makes a law saying you must do something, it's compulsory. So if the price goes up, you haven't got much choice. You have to buy it anyway because the government by law says you have to. So demand will be inelastic.